It was just another crowded morning in the city courthouse. The air smelled faintly of old wood, paperwork, and frustration. People shuffled nervously in the benches, waiting for their cases to be called. But when a young girl named Amira walked in, the energy shifted. 17 years old, dressed simply, clutching her notebook as though it was armor, she didn't look like the kind of person who belonged in front of a judge. She looked like a student on her way to school. Yet, here she was, facing a man who would change her life forever. Judge Whitmore was feared by almost everyone who entered his courtroom. With his sharp suits, cold eyes, and an arrogance that filled every corner of the chamber, he carried himself like a king sitting on his throne. People whispered that he enjoyed tearing defendants apart, that he relished every moment of humiliation he delivered. And Amira, trembling but refusing to bow her head, was about to become his next target. The case itself was small, barely worth a hearing. A misunderstanding at a store, a misplaced item in her bag, accusations that didn't hold much weight. But Whitmore didn't care about evidence or truth or fairness. He leaned forward, looked down at the teenage girl, and smirked. Then, with the entire courtroom listening, he spat out the words that would echo across the internet in less than 24 hours. "You're just another stupid kid," he said coldly. "People like you will never amount to anything." The room froze. A few gasps broke the silence. Amira's cheeks flushed with heat, but she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She just stood there, gripping her notebook tighter, and stared straight ahead. She knew if she spoke, her voice might break. And so she stayed silent. But the world outside didn't stay silent. Someone in the courtroom had recorded the exchange on their phone. Within hours, the clip was uploaded online. By the end of the day, it had gone viral. Half the people defended the judge, saying he was just tough on crime. But the other half, millions of viewers, were furious. They saw a young black teenager being degraded by a powerful man in robes. They saw cruelty dressed up as justice. And they weren't going to forget it. Amira, however, didn't have time to think about trending hashtags or online debates. She went back to her small apartment, back to her reality. Her life wasn't easy. After losing her mother, the age of 14, she had taken on more responsibility than most adults. She balanced schoolwork with a part-time job at a grocery store. She cooked meals for her younger brother, helped him with homework, and made sure he never felt the full weight of their struggles. At night, when the city grew quiet, Amira would sit by the window and dream. She wanted to become a lawyer. Not for the money, not for the prestige, but for justice. For kids like her who never got a fair shot. She wanted to stand in the same kind of courtroom that had humiliated her, only this time on the other side, defending the innocent. And though Judge Whitmore's words hurt, they also ignited something deep inside her, a fire, a determination. Meanwhile, far away in his mansion, Judge Whitmore was facing his own battles. For all his arrogance, for all his cruelty, he couldn't fight time. He was sick, very sick. The whispers were true. Years of loneliness had caught up with him, and now, even with doctors and expensive treatments, his body was failing. He sat in rooms filled with luxury, but they were empty. He walked past shelves of fine art, but no one to share them with. Servants came and went. None of them spoke to him beyond "yes, sir," and "no, sir." But there was something else, something no one in the public knew. Late at night, Whitmore would sit alone in his study, staring at a single photograph. It was of a nurse, smiling warmly, holding a young girl in her arms. That nurse had taken care of him years ago when he had heart surgery. She had been patient, kind, and unshaken by his temper. She treated him like a human being when everyone else treated him like a monster. And though he never admitted it, her presence had been the only time he had felt peace in decades. That nurse was Amira's mother. When she died, Whitmore never reached out. Pride kept him silent, but the guilt never left. And so, as his health deteriorated, he made a decision that would shock everyone after his death. When Judge Whitmore passed away, the news channels exploded. A man of his stature, a man with so much wealth and property, gone overnight. Reporters swarmed the courthouse again. This time, not for his judgments, but for his will. Who would inherit the mansions, the cars, millions in his bank accounts? Some speculated it would go to a distant cousin. Others guessed a university or charity. But when the will was finally read aloud, the room went silent. Every word seemed to hang in the air like thunder. Judge Whitmore had left everything, his entire fortune, every house, every car, every dollar, to Amira, the same girl he had called stupid in his courtroom. The reaction was immediate: shock, outrage. Some called it justice, others called it madness. Reporters crowded outside Amira's apartment, desperate for a comment. And Amira herself? She sat in stunned silence, holding the official letter in her trembling hands. She couldn't believe it. The man who had humiliated her, the man who had looked at her like she was worthless, had made her the heir to his entire estate. In the days that followed, more details came out. Lawyers revealed that Whitmore had written the will months before his death. In his final statement, he explained that Amira's mother had once saved his life, that her kindness had left a mark no amount of arrogance could erase, and though he never had the courage to apologize to Amira directly, this, his fortune, his legacy, was his way of saying he was wrong. The world debated his motives endlessly. Was it guilt? Was it redemption? Or was it simply irony? The universe balancing the scales in its own twisted way? But for Amira, the answer didn't matter. What mattered was the truth. She was not stupid. She never had been. Weeks later, Amira returned to the same courtroom where she had once stood as a defendant.